This is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today we are using the used Masterbuilt smoker that I bought off of Amazon. When you buy a used item off of Amazon, it's kind of a crapshoot. Sometimes you get something that might have just been randomly returned, or an open box, or something that has actually been used, and you never really know. I bought 3 computers in the last year that were all out of the used section. One of them came loosely packed with missing parts and stuff like that, which of course had to be returned. The other one came that had been started up and used maybe briefly at most. And then the third one came brand new with the sealed tape still on it. So both of those second 2 were perfectly fine. As far as this smoker, now, if you watch my last video, which I tried to cut back a little bit because when I filmed it, I actually made it a little too long, you'll see that this came out almost completely new. I don't think it had ever been turned on. However, you could tell that it had been opened and some of the factory packaging was replaced, like there was a zip tie on it where normally would be a twist tie of sorts. And it was completely unassembled and completely unused, and everything was included in the box. So I was very happy with what I got, and after testing it completely, it worked great. Do remember that when you buy something used, to open it the minute you get it, and if there is an issue, you'll go back and complain with that and figure out a resolution. If it's something that you can deal with, maybe there'll be a credit for a future purchase. If it's something you can't deal with, then you'll want to get it returned as soon as possible. So I went ahead and I turned the smoker on a couple minutes ago and preheated it. I set it to a temperature of 250 degrees at 24 hours. Now, always when you are using this smoker, set it for longer than what you think you're going to need it, because the worst case scenario is if it turns off 2 hours too early, then your food will go cold on you, and that can actually cause a problem where bacteria will start to grow, and we don't want that because that can make you really sick. Now, as far as the damper or the smoke vent, I like to leave that at about 50% until I know I need it something a little different. If you close it on an electric smoker, you'll get more heat, but the smoke will get a little stale, and we want the perfect balance. So we want the amount of heat that we need and the amount of fresh air flowing through it to give it good, clean smoke. Now, of course, electric smokers have different smoke than an offset or a charcoal smoker, but it's still a smoldering burn from wood chips. So we're up to 192 now, so we're gonna go ahead and get the pork out and go from there. So I'll be right back. Now what I have is something a little unique to my particular local store. And what these are is these are pork blade steak thick cut. So basically they're like a double thickness pork blade steak, but I like to actually call it a roast. And it performs a lot like a roast. So it'll have a lot of the same characteristics, but it'll cook a lot faster. You'll still need a lot of time for that really good breakdown. And I don't know if we have enough time for that, but we want to just make sure that it gets completely cooked through. So let's set that to the side for a second. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a fresh piece of tin foil in there. Now, the way I like to do it is I like to grab an object that I know fits in there, whether it be a grill mat or a cookie sheet or even a box that I have set aside just for this purpose. You make sure that it fits on the shelf conveniently with a gap around it for smoke to travel easily. Then you fold your foil pan around that so that way it goes like that, and make sure the edges are up. So that way, when the grease lands in it, it performs just like a cookie sheet. Also, you could buy cheap foil pans from the dollar store or your local superstore, and you can just use those if you want. It does make it a little easier, but again, make sure that it does not fill the whole shelf. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in there. Let's set it right down on the very bottom shelf. And I made sure that there was a gap on each side. When we get some pictures later on in the cook, you'll be able to see that. For the pork, we're going to actually put it on this, and this is a grill mat, one of my favorite accessories. I have two really favorite accessories, and this is one, and the other one is a pellet smoker tray. We won't use that today, but there is a lot of recipes that we use that for, like for instance, smoked cheese, which is my favorite smoked food. I'm going to go ahead and put this in on the cooking surface, and that's going to be the second rack down, right there. Now, when I put it in initially, I'm going to leave it out as far as possible, but when I actually do it, I'll push it back to the center. The nice thing about those, besides being easy to clean, because you can throw it right in the dishwasher, and it doesn't tend to stick too much, a little bit around the edges to the grate, but you can move it around if you need to reposition the food, or you can just turn it if you want to turn the food around. When I went to the last trade show that I went to, I ran across a booth there, and this gentleman here, and I have a picture of him, had this booth set up with all of his spices. And I told him, I said, you have to pick one. And this is the one he picked that I purchased from him. This is not a comp, so it is not a sponsored item. This is WARPIG Smokehouse brisket rub. Now, I asked him specifically, will this work on pork butt? And he said that he would use it on either. Now, I'm going to make a small adjustment to it, and that small adjustment is going to be a little bit of an addition of garlic. Now, I have taken a good look at this, and then I want you to get a good look at it. I'm going to bring the jar up here to the camera. And now I'm going to go ahead and pop a close-up that I'm going to take later on after I'm done filming that, so you can see it up here on a plate. And you'll see that there's a lot of different ingredients in there. And I'll also put a link to his information in the description below. Again, it's not an affiliate link, so if you buy any of this, I will not get compensated. And that's okay with me. If it's good, I want you to have it. So like always, I like to use gloves, especially when I'm out here filming, because then I can just take them off and throw them away, and I don't have to worry about having a mess, and I can touch the camera and stuff like that once I remove the gloves. Now with this piece of meat, because it's a sliced piece from the butcher shop, I won't need to do any trimming or anything. I'm just going to open that up and try not to get any drippings anywhere. And really what we're looking at is just two thick pork steaks. I'm not going to season the edges on a cut this short. Now, I might roll them around if there's a bunch left over in the tray, but typically if it's that thin, I don't worry about it because I don't want to double season a bite or anything. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the garlic on this side. And this is garlic granules that I put in a recycled container. So I've been using this container for quite some time. Every once in a while, when it runs empty, I will wash it, hand wash. I can't put it through the dishwasher, it'll melt. And then I just refill it. Typically, I use a McCormick bulk container of garlic granules, not garlic powder. So we're gonna give this a try through the shaker. Sometimes some of the shakers don't let enough stuff through. So I want to get enough for a good coat, but I don't want to overdo it in case it's stronger than I expect. I really don't think it's a very strong spice mix, so I think we could go a lot thicker than what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to go ahead and pat it down. And then I'm going to flip it over. With pork, I like to leave it out of the refrigerator about 5 minutes before I want to use it. I don't want to leave it out any more than 15 because of food safety, but I want the sides to come up in temperature just a little bit because then it gets tacky and then I don't have to use any binder. Now I'm going to point something out, and I don't know if you can see it very well with the camera, but there is a nice layer of fat right here that almost looks like a piece of bacon, and that same layer runs there, so they might have been cut together. But if you did want to trim it, that would be where you would want to trim. And again, like I said, it's a nice thick layer of fat. I would still cook it and then possibly throw it either in a frying pan or on the propane grill for a minute or two to crisp it up when it was done cooking. And mostly when I say cooking, I mean to render out a lot of that fat so it kind of tightens up like a pork rind or something like that. Pat that in, flip it back over and take another look at it and make sure that we're happy with it. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more on there. And flip it again. That looks really good. And a little bit did get on the edges, so I think we're really good there. Not trying to overthink this, we're just trying to run some test cooks on the smoker. Now, again, this is the new used one, so it really hasn't been broken in yet, but stuff like this with a lot of fat on it will be perfect for that. All right, let's go ahead and toss these in there. Now, the one thing I am going to do is I'm going to put the fat end close to the middle. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I want most of that to drip down into the tray. Just like that. And then, like I said, we're just going to push that back just a touch so it's not touching right on the edge. And we'll go ahead and get that closed as soon as possible. If I leave the door open, I know there'll be comments, so I want to get it closed as soon as I can. And then this stuff can all go straight into the garbage. This one's pretty clean, so I'll use this one to carry us all in the house. And that'll be it for now. It's set at 250. The current temperature after opening and closing the door is 217. And the timer, again, I set it at 24 hours, but right now it's at 23 hours and 38 minutes. So basically, it's taken 22 minutes to get up to 217, including opening and closing the door. So we'll come back and check on this in a little while, but for right now, I'm just going to put some wood chips in here, and I'm going to let it smoke for the first hour without messing with it or touching it anywhere. But you've seen me put wood chips in, and if you want to watch that, you can click back to the last video. But I'm just going to take this out and load that up. So I'll see you in a couple seconds for you, but it'll be an hour for me. We are back, and it's been just slightly over an hour and a half, maybe about an hour and 40 minutes, and everything is looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share some pictures with you. I just opened this up and took a picture, and I'm going to pop that right here. First picture is of the pork blades, and the second picture that you're going to see is the tray with the drippings. Now, if you look at those pork blades, they look really nice, and they're just coming along pretty good. It's a really good time to insert a thermometer. We want to get the temperature to a safe level. I opened it up, a little bit of smoke came out, not a lot. That's more residual than anything else. All those wood chips have been burned up for a long time. I've got my Thermo Pro 2-probe thermometer here, and I only have one probe hooked up. I'm going to go ahead and switch it on temperature mode, and it's going to come right on there. And I just rinsed off the tip of it because usually I just use this to check the temperature inside charcoal grills. So I'm going to put on what I call my little sandwich gloves, just like what you see at the sandwich shop. They're pretty cheap gloves, and I use them for just basic stuff, handling things and doing things like skinning or doing things like taking chicken off the bone for a salad or whatnot. Really convenient, but they're easy, cheap, and disposable. So just like that, and we're done. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this in there. The main thing is you want to get it as close to the middle as possible without touching the bone. Suppose I could have left the glove on to help with that, but I didn't. Now, when you do this, you want to drop the wire all the way to the bottom, and then we'll clamp it back closed. I'm going to just go ahead and set that right here for now. And we have an internal temperature of 142. So we are coming right along, and I'm not going for a like a brisket temperature or anything like that. I'm going for a good dinner temperature, and that temperature will be somewhere around 155. Now, time over temperature, 160 is the best place to go. But what we're going to do is we're going to slowly get through that temperature, and that'll work just fine, and it'll be safe to eat. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more wood chips, because while we didn't want to over smoke it, we still want to get some good smoke to it. First of all, this is my favorite brand of wood chips, which is the Smokehouse products. And then this is the cherry. These are the small wood chips. Let's go ahead and pull out the tube like that. And then we'll fill this halfway full. Usually I can get that in about 2 small handfuls. Then I'm going to insert it, put it in there, spin it to dump it, pull it back out, and then I'm going to fill it a little less than half this time. That'll fill that tray up completely. Then I'm going to back it off, and then just to about right there, so it's not level, so just there, so it stays locked in. Now, if you're going to maintain this and you're going to watch it and put in more wood chips every 30 minutes, then you can just put in one little fill, which, like I said, is a little more than half of that tube, and that will keep going along for 30 minutes. But if you want it to get the maximum amount of time, you're either going to have to pack that tube all the way to the top to where it'll barely go in there, or do what I just did and fill it with 2 half loads and then dump it in there, because it's just a lot easier and then you don't have to hassle with it. If you put too much in there, you'll have a hard time getting the fill tube in and out, and also you'll have a hard time when you dump it getting it back upright. Now, you don't have to turn it back up. You can just dump it and leave it there and let it burn. That's up to you. It'll work just fine. Now we're going to go ahead and let it run for a minute here. We because of how much we opened the door, we did have a pretty significant temperature drop, and we are down to 198 right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to up the temperature a little bit more. It's set at 250 now, but I'm going to up it up into the 260 range. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want it to cook at 250. Every time it gets to 250, it turns off and goes back down in temperature. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close this down just a little bit, and that'll also help the temperature go up a little bit. And I don't know if you can see this, but the wood chips that I just put in there are starting to smoke now, and they're coming through. Typically, I would put some kind of a takeoff on top of here, but for right now, I wanted to do it just without doing any kind of modifications or special adjustments. So we're going to go ahead and run that probably for about another 30, 40 minutes till we get to the temperature that we want for our dinner. So that'll just be a couple seconds for you. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, and we are at 155, and it's kind of going up pretty slow. So I'm thinking that it's getting to the point to where we would have had to gone up in temperature a little bit more. Just going to set the thermometer on the side there. It's really nice because it has the magnetic strips on it. And I'm only going to pull one of these out. I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you can get a good look at it. Now, let's get a slice off of that. It feels perfect on the outside there. That is perfect. And bring this up there. Of course, your pork is all white there, but you can see there's the like a rib of fat that runs through the pork. And go ahead and cut that. And give this a little try. That is done just perfect. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this piece and I'm just going to cut the top off. Now the reason I'm doing that is so I get a better taste of the bark here. That's really tasty. I feel like it definitely did need a little bit thicker coat. So when I do my next trial with that WARPIG seasoning, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to do it on a piece of beef, and I'll get it a thick coat like I would do on something like a brisket. That's pretty much a wrap there. I'm going to go ahead and take these in and set them to rest for a few minutes while I go ahead and make some vegetables. I'm going to do some stir-fried zucchini to go with this, and that'll be perfect, and maybe a few potato chips. So that was thick cut pork blade with the WARPIG seasoning in the Masterbuilt electric smoker, and this is the MES 140B. If you saw anything in the video you like, there is affiliate links below. Also, there's a link to the WARPIG seasoning, which is not an affiliate link, and go ahead and check that site out. And if you want to support the channel, you don't necessarily have to buy anything. Just click on one of the links and that'll help out and show traffic. So thanks again for watching. Have a great day.